The air in the old cathedral was thick with the scent of lilies and expensive perfume. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, painting the guests in hues of sapphire and ruby. Arthur, my son, stood at the altar, his face a mixture of nerves and adoration. And walking toward him, on the arm of a man I barely recognized, was my daughter. My name is Clara Evans. I am 72 years old, and I was living the proudest moment of my life, until it became the greatest humiliation. For 33 years, I was the only mother Isabella ever knew. Her father, my beloved Thomas, was taken from us by a heart attack when she was 18. From that day, my world shrank to a single purpose, her. I worked 2 jobs as a seamstress and a supermarket cashier to keep a roof over our heads. I sold my own mother's antique brooch to pay for her first year of college. I took out a second mortgage on our modest, 3-bedroom home so she could study abroad for a semester, a dream she'd had since she was a little girl. That morning, I had woken up with a flutter in my chest. I carefully pressed my lavender dress, the one I'd worn to her graduation, the only truly nice thing I owned. In the small bathroom mirror, I fixed my silver hair, practicing the speech I would give at the reception. My gift for her was tucked safely in my purse, a simple, elegant locket that had belonged to my grandmother. Inside was a tiny, faded photo of Thomas. But 6 months ago, Arthur introduced Isabella to his mother, Eleanor Rothschild. Eleanor was everything I was not, impeccably dressed, effortlessly poised, the matriarch of a family whose name was synonymous with old money and influence. The first time we met, at a stiflingly formal dinner, her eyes swept over me with a polite, icy dismissal. "It's so commendable," she had said, "that a woman in your position managed to raise such a presentable daughter." Eleanor began her work subtly. "A girl with your potential, Isabella, must learn to curate her circle," she'd murmur over afternoon tea in her sun-drenched conservatory. Some connections, however heartfelt, can become anchors, holding you back from the destiny you deserve. I watched, helpless, as my daughter started to shrink from our life. She became embarrassed by my small house with its worn furniture, by my hands, calloused from years of needlework, by my faint, unchangeable regional accent that marked me as someone from the wrong side of the city. Her visits became rushed, her phone calls always ending with, "I'm sorry, Mum, Eleanor is taking me to a gallery opening/charity gala/brunch at the club." Every word was a pinprick to my heart, but I bore it with a smile. I told myself it was a phase, that after the wedding, when the excitement died down, my Isabella would return to me. How foolish I was. The ceremony was a blur of opulence. I arrived early, clutching a simple bouquet of daisies, and made my way to the front row. A young usher in a tailored suit gently blocked my path. "Excuse me, madam," he said, not unkindly, but with a firmness that brooked no argument. "The front rows are reserved for immediate family." He gestured towards the back of the vast church. "Your seat is in row 18. Row 18. The words echoed in my mind as I numbly took my assigned seat. As if I were a distant cousin, a coworker, a mere guest. As if I hadn't been the one who held her through every childhood fever, who helped her with her homework until dawn, who quietly skipped meals so she could have new textbooks. The organ swelled. Isabella appeared, a vision in a gown of ivory silk that likely cost more than my annual pension. And walking beside her, her hand tucked possessively into the crook of Isabella's arm, was Eleanor Rothschild, beaming with a mother's pride. My daughter's eyes scanned the crowd as she walked down the aisle. They passed over me in row 18 without a flicker of recognition. I was invisible. The reception was held in the Rothschilds' manicured garden, a sprawling estate that felt more like a public park. A string quartet played Vivaldi. Waiters in white jackets circulated with trays of champagne and canapés. I felt like a ghost at my own daughter's feast. I found Isabella near the rose arbor, laughing with a group of Arthur's friends from Yale. My heart hammered against my ribs. I approached, my hand closing around the locket in my purse. "Isabella, my love," I said, my voice trembling. "You looked so beautiful." She turned, and the smile on her face didn't reach her eyes. It was a polite, social mask. "Clara. Thank you for coming." She called me Clara. Not Mum. The word felt like a physical blow. I have something for you." I held out the small velvet box. "It was your great-grandmother's. I thought you might like to have something old." She didn't take it. Eleanor materialized behind her, a silent, smiling sentinel. "Clara, that's thoughtful," Isabella began, her voice cool. "But there's something I need to tell you." The music and laughter around us seemed to fade into a dull roar. The world narrowed to my daughter's face, her mouth forming words I could never have imagined. "Eleanor has been more of a mother to me in these past few months than you have been my entire life," she said, her voice clear and steady. "She understands the world I'm meant to be in. She's shown me what a family name can truly mean." "Isa. Bella." I stammered, my legs feeling weak. "She's legally adopted me," Isabella continued, as if discussing the weather. "My name is now Isabella Rothschild. It's been finalized. Arthur and I will be moving into the east wing of the main house." I stared, uncomprehending. "Adopted? But, you're 33 years old." "I'm your mother." "You were my mother," she corrected, her gaze icy. "But a woman needs a mother who can open doors, not one who reminds her of all the doors that are closed. Eleanor is my real mother now." Eleanor placed a hand on Isabella's shoulder, her smile triumphant. Isabella leaned forward, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper meant only for me. "I have a real family now. You're just a remnant of a life I've outgrown. Get out." The breath left my body. Tears welled in my eyes, but I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I placed the velvet box on a nearby table, turned, and walked away. I walked through the crowd of glittering strangers, through the garden, down the long driveway, and into the silent, empty street. Not a single person called my name. Not Arthur, not a friend, not my own daughter. 33 years of love, sacrifice, and memory, erased in a single, brutal moment. The following week was a descent into a special kind of hell. My small house, once filled with the echoes of Isabella's laughter, was now a tomb of memories. Her childhood drawings were still taped to the refrigerator. The letters she wrote me from summer camp were in a box under my bed. The photo albums were full of images of us, at the beach, blowing out birthday candles on homemade cakes, hugging on the first day of school. I waited for the phone to ring. For a text. For any sign of remorse. I called her. I sent messages, my words becoming increasingly desperate. "Isabella, please. We need to talk. I'm your mother. Sweetheart, I don't understand what I did wrong. I love you. Please, just tell me you're okay." Nothing. The silence was absolute, a wall between the life I had and the void I now inhabited. 10 days after the wedding, a crisp, cream-colored envelope arrived. It was from the law firm of Sterling and Gray. My hand shook as I opened it. "Dear Mrs. Clara Evans, this letter serves as formal notification that our client, Mrs. Isabella Rothschild, formerly Evans, has legally changed her surname and has formally severed all familial and financial ties with you. Furthermore, you are hereby informed that you have been removed as the beneficiary from all life insurance policies, investment accounts, and joint holdings. All assets from the joint savings account you shared with Mrs. Rothschild have been legally transferred to her, under the authority of her legal guardian, Mrs. Eleanor Rothschild." I sank onto my sofa, the paper fluttering from my numb fingers. She hadn't just taken my daughter. She had taken my security. The joint savings account held nearly $25,000, my entire emergency fund, painstakingly saved over decades. The life insurance policy I had been paying into for 30 years, meant to cover my funeral expenses so Isabella wouldn't be burdened, was now gone. The financial blow was catastrophic. Without Isabella's occasional contributions and without that savings cushion, I fell behind on the mortgage. The bank's foreclosure notice arrived 3 weeks later. I had 30 days. I packed what little I could into 2 suitcases. The rest I sold or gave away. The house, my home, the last tangible connection to Thomas and our life together, was gone. I moved into a rented room at the Starlight Inn, a motel on the highway bypass. The room smelled of stale cigarettes and disinfectant. The bed springs groaned, and the constant hum of traffic was a lullaby of despair. My days took on a grim rhythm. I would walk to the nearby diner, spend 2 hours nursing a single coffee, and watch the world go by. I saw mothers and daughters shopping, laughing, sharing secrets. Each one was a fresh wound. One afternoon, driven by a desperate, masochistic need, I took 3 buses to the Rothschild estate. I stood outside the wrought iron gates, looking up at the palatial home. I could see figures moving behind the large windows. I pressed the intercom. A disembodied voice answered. Yes? I'm here to see Isabella. I'm her mother. There was a long pause. I'm sorry, ma'am. Mrs. Rothschild has given strict instructions. You are not to be admitted. The gate remained closed. I was a stranger, an intruder in my own daughter's life. That night, back in the motel room, I sat on the edge of the thin mattress, an old photo in my hands. It was Isabella at 10, beaming, her arms wrapped around me after winning a spelling bee. You're my hero, Mum, she had said. The sound of a family celebrating in the next room, a chorus of happy birthday and joyous laughter, drifted through the wall. It was the final straw. The crushing grief inside me began to shift, to harden. It was no longer just pain. It was a cold, sharp anger. Eleanor and Isabella thought they had broken me. They thought they had taken everything. They were wrong. The next morning, I pulled my old suitcase from under the bed. It contained my most important documents, bundled together after Thomas's death. In the fog of fresh grief and the overwhelming task of single parenthood, I had only glanced at them before storing them away. I spread the papers on the stained motel carpet. Our marriage certificate. Isabella's birth certificate. The deed to the house I had just lost. And at the very bottom, sealed in a brittle plastic sleeve, was a thick manila envelope from a firm called Blackwood & Associates. I had assumed it was just more paperwork related to Thomas's small life insurance policy. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal. The first page was the will I remembered. But as I delved deeper, my breath caught in my throat. Last will and testament of Thomas Evans. To my beloved wife, Clara, I bequeath all my real estate holdings, including the commercial property at 44 Heritage Lane, valued at $750,000. A 5-acre parcel of undeveloped land in the Highlands District, valued at $1,500,000, * a penthouse apartment in the Apex Residences, fully paid, valued at $950,000. The list went on. Commercial spaces, land leases, stock portfolios. The total value exceeded $5 million. I was paralyzed. For 15 years, I had lived in near poverty, working my fingers to the bone, while I was the legal owner of a fortune. Thomas, a quiet, unassuming property assessor, had been secretly building a real estate empire. There was a handwritten note clipped to the last page. My dearest Clara, if you are reading this, then my plans have come to fruition. I bought these properties under a corporate alias to protect our privacy and minimize taxes. Everything is in your name, held under the identity Catherine Blake, which I established for you. The lawyer, Mr. Alastair Finch, has all the details. I trust you to build a wonderful life for you and our daughter. I love you always. Thomas Catherine Blake. My husband had created a separate, legal identity for me. I was a millionaire several times over, and I had never known. I found the business card. Alastair Finch, ESQ. The number was still legible. I used the motel's front desk phone, my heart pounding. Finch and Associates, a crisp voice answered. I need to speak with Mr. Alastair Finch. This is Catherine Blake. The pause on the other end was profound. Mrs. Blake, the voice said, now layered with reverence. We have been awaiting your call for 15 years. Mr. Finch is available. When can you come in? 2 hours later, I was sitting in a wood-paneled office high above the city. Alastair Finch, a man in his 60s with kind eyes, greeted me like royalty. Mrs. Blake, he said, your husband was a visionary. The portfolio has been managed impeccably. The properties have been generating substantial rental income. There is a liquid fund of $3,800,000 in your name, and the total asset value now exceeds $7 million. $7 million. The number was incomprehensible. There is one property of particular note, Finch continued, opening a file. The land in the Highlands. It is, in fact, the land upon which the entire Rothschild estate is built. Their mansion, their gardens, it's all on your property, Mrs. Blake. Their lease agreement expires in 60 days. A slow, cold smile spread across my face for the first time in months. Eleanor Rothschild, the woman who had stolen my daughter and left me destitute, was living on my land. Mr. Finch, I said, my voice steady and firm. I want to reclaim everything that is mine. Quietly. They will discover who I am only when it is too late for them to do anything about it. Alastair Finch smiled. It would be my distinct pleasure, Mrs. Blake. The following days were a whirlwind. With Finch's help, I accessed the fortune that was rightfully mine. I didn't move into a penthouse, I rented a comfortable, anonymous apartment. I needed to remain in the shadows while I learned everything about my enemies. Finch provided a detailed dossier. Eleanor Rothschild's fortune was a facade. She was leveraged to the hilt. The mansion had a massive mortgage. Her charity foundation was a money-losing vanity project. She owed hundreds of thousands in credit card debt and business loans. Mrs. Rothschild is living on borrowed money and borrowed time, Finch confirmed. Perfect. I began to watch them. I saw Eleanor and Isabella lunching at exclusive restaurants, their laughter sharp and brittle. Isabella was a perfect copy of her new mother, the same gestures, the same calculated smile. But her eyes were empty. One afternoon, from a cafe across the street, I heard Isabella say, "Mother, sometimes it feels like my past life was a dream. A rather drab one." "That's how it should be, darling," Eleanor purred. "We have shed our old skins." The words cut me, but they also fueled my resolve. "Alastair," I said that evening over a secure line. "I want to buy all of Eleanor Rothschild's debts. Every single one." Within a week, I was her sole creditor. She now owed over $1.5 million to Catherine Blake, a woman she had never heard of. We arranged a meeting at my penthouse in the Apex Residences. I dressed in a severe, expensive black suit. I had my hair styled into a chic silver bob. When I looked in the mirror, Clara Evans was gone. Only Catherine Blake remained. Eleanor arrived, nervous but trying to maintain her hauteur. She didn't recognize me. "Mrs. Rothschild," I began, my voice cool and businesslike. "You owe me $1,550,000. You have 30 days to pay in full, or I will seize every asset you have, starting with the land under your feet." She panicked, offering counter-proposals, social connections, anything. I dismissed them all. You have a history of interfering in family relationships, I said, watching her closely. Of convincing young women to abandon their mothers. I find that morally reprehensible. How do you know? She started, her eyes widening. Because the mother you convinced Isabella Evans to abandon, I said, slowly rising to my feet, was me. The color drained from her face. No. Clara? It can't be. Oh, but it is, I said calmly. You thought you had destroyed a helpless old woman. But you merely woke up Catherine Blake. The eviction notices were sent the next morning. The banks called in her lines of credit. Her world was collapsing, and she knew who was behind it. Isabella called me 2 days later. Catherine Blake, her voice was a broken whisper. Is it really you? Who is asking? I replied, my voice cold. Isabella Rothschild or Isabella Evans? She broke down sobbing. Mum. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I was a fool. She poisoned me against you. Did she force you to look me in the eye and tell me to get out? I asked, the memory raw. Did she force you to take my life savings? No, she wept. That was me. That was my cowardice, my greed. I would give anything to take it back. We agreed to meet at the city botanical gardens, a place we had loved when she was a child. She arrived looking like my daughter again, no makeup, simple clothes, her hair in a loose ponytail. She didn't make excuses. She took full responsibility, her remorse palpable and real. She told me how empty her new life was, how Eleanor saw her as a trophy, not a daughter. I thought I wanted a life of luxury, she said, tears streaming down her face. But I just wanted my mum. I laid out my conditions. She would work, she would earn her own way, she would help me run a foundation for single mothers in our name, the Clara Evans Foundation. She agreed to everything without hesitation. The final confrontation happened at the Rothschild estate as the movers arrived. Eleanor was hysterical. Isabella stood before her, calm and resolute. I'm leaving, Eleanor. I'm going home to my mother. You're throwing everything away for a woman who is financially blackmailing us. Eleanor shrieked. No, Isabella said, her voice strong. She's offering me everything. You were the one who was blackmailing me, with social status, with a false idea of family. Goodbye, Eleanor. She walked away from the mansion and took my arm. We didn't look back. The Clara Evans Foundation is housed in a beautiful, renovated brownstone. We provide scholarships, childcare, and career counseling for dozens of single mothers. Isabella is the heart of its daily operations, her compassion born from her own painful journey. We live together in a comfortable, but not extravagant, home. We talk for hours, mending the tears in our relationship stitch by careful stitch. The money is a tool, not a master. It provides security and allows us to help others, but it no longer defines us. I forgave my daughter, not because she deserved it, but because I deserved the peace that came with it. And in doing so, I finally forgave myself for ever believing I wasn't enough. Justice, I learned, isn't always about vengeance. Sometimes, it's about reclaiming your story and discovering that the most valuable fortunes were never the monetary ones, but the love you thought you'd lost, waiting to be found again. The grand opening of the Clara Evans Foundation was a modest affair, a deliberate choice. There were no Society Pages reporters, no champagne fountains. Instead, the bright, airy common room was filled with the women we were there to help, single mothers of all ages and backgrounds, their children playing in a dedicated corner supervised by volunteers. Isabella moved among them, not as a benefactor, but as a peer. She poured coffee, listened to stories of night shifts and daycare struggles, and shared, when asked, A sanitized version of her own story, a period of being lost, she called it. I watched her from a small table, my heart swelling with a fragile, newfound pride. This was the daughter I had raised, empathetic, strong, and real. Our first major test came a month later. A woman named Anya, a Ukrainian refugee with 2 young daughters, came to us in desperation. Her cleaning job didn't cover the rent on her cramped apartment, and her landlord was threatening eviction. She had no family here, no safety net. "This is exactly why we exist," Isabella said, her eyes blazing with purpose. "We used foundation funds to cover 2 months of Anya's rent while our employment specialist helped her secure a better-paying job as a medical translator, utilizing the fluent English she'd worked so hard to master. But the victory was short-lived. The landlord, a slick man named Mr. Croft, refused the payment. He wanted them out. He had a new tenant willing to pay significantly more. "It's not legal," I told Anya, my voice firm. "He can't do that." "But he is," she whispered, her face pale with fear. "He says he will change the locks." This was a problem Clara Evans would have felt powerless against. But Catherine Blake saw the underlying structure. "Give me his name and the property address, Anya," I said. A quick call to Alistair Finch confirmed what I suspected. The apartment building was not owned by Mr. Croft. He was merely the managing superintendent for a shell corporation. And after a brief investigation, Alistair discovered the ultimate owner of that shell corporation was a holding company named Rothschild Properties. Eleanor. She wasn't just living on my land, she was still in the business, and her tactics remained as ruthless as ever. This was no coincidence. It was a shot across the bow. Isabella was incensed. "She's doing this to get to us. To hurt you through the foundation." "Perhaps," I said, a cold calm settling over me. "But she's picked the wrong fight." I instructed Alistair to have our foundation's legal team intervene immediately, citing tenant protection laws. Simultaneously, as Catherine Blake, I initiated the process to purchase the entire building from Rothschild Properties. The offer I made was deliberately, insultingly low, a fraction of its market value. It was a message: I know it's you, and I can take whatever I want. Eleanor, backed into a financial corner, had no choice but to accept. Anya and her daughters kept their home, and the building became the foundation's first owned property, ensuring we could offer stable, below-market rent to other families in need. The skirmish was won, but it revealed that the war was not over. Eleanor was still out there, wounded but not defeated. The quiet life I had envisioned was proving to be an illusion. The call came on a rainy Tuesday evening. Isabella was at the foundation, and I was alone in our apartment, reviewing grant proposals. "Clara?" "It's Arthur." His voice was strained, stripped of its usual confident polish. I hadn't spoken to him since the wedding. "Arthur," I said, my tone neutral. Can we talk?" "Not over the phone. Please." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a quiet pub near his office. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth, a half-finished whiskey in front of him. He looked exhausted, his suit rumpled. "Thank you for coming," he said, standing up awkwardly. I nodded, taking the seat opposite him. "What is this about, Arthur?" "It's about Isabella. And my mother." He ran a hand through his hair. "Everything is falling apart. After Catherine Blake foreclosed on the estate, Mother moved into a smaller property she owned. The atmosphere is toxic. She blames Isabella for everything. She blames me for not controlling my wife." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I found that I partly meant it. He was a weak man, but he was also a victim of Eleanor's manipulations in his own way. "Isabella told me everything," he continued, his eyes pleading. "About who Catherine Blake really is. About the foundation. She's become the woman I fell in love with again. The kind, real one. Not the polished doll my mother created. Then I'm happy for her. But she won't take me back, he said, the words bursting out of him. She says she needs space. She's living with you, and she says she's finally happy, but Clara, she's my wife. I looked at him, this boy who had stood by while my world was shattered. Arthur, do you know what she said to me at your wedding? The exact words? He looked down at his glass, ashamed. I heard some of it. I have a real family now. Get out. I let the words hang in the air between us. You heard that. You saw me walk out alone. And you did nothing. You were complicit in the destruction of a mother and daughter. Did you think that would just go away? That you could have that version of Isabella without any consequences? Tears welled in his eyes. I was a coward. I was terrified of my mother. I thought if I just went along with it, things would settle down. That is the problem, Arthur. You go along with things. Life requires you to stand up for them. Isabella is finally standing up for herself. For the first time, she's building a life based on what she believes in, not what she's told to believe in. And you are part of the life she's trying to escape. So there's no hope? He asked, his voice small. That is not my question to answer, I said softly. It's Isabella's. And if you truly love her, you will give her the time and space she has asked for. You will respect her journey instead of trying to derail it for your own comfort. I left him there, a broken man in a pub booth. I felt a pang of sympathy, but no regret. His unraveling was a necessary consequence. For everyone to heal, the old, rotten structures had to fall. The news broke in the business section a week later. Rothschild Properties files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Eleanor's financial empire had finally crumbled. The article was dry and factual, but I could read between the lines. The loss of the Palisades land, the forced sale of assets like Anya's building, and the mountain of debt had been the final, fatal blows. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. I was tending to the small herb garden on our apartment balcony, a simple pleasure I'd recently taken up, when the intercom buzzed. It was the building concierge. A Mrs. Rothschild is here to see you, Mrs. Evans. She's rather insistent. My blood ran cold. Send her up, please. I had not seen Eleanor since the day of the eviction. The woman who stepped out of the elevator was a ghost of her former self. She was still dressed elegantly, but the clothes seemed to hang on her. Her makeup was flawless, but it couldn't conceal the deep lines of bitterness and defeat around her mouth. She didn't wait for an invitation, walking straight past me into the living room, her eyes scanning the comfortable, unpretentious space with disdain. So this is the lair of the great Catherine Blake, she said, her voice raspy. What do you want, Eleanor? I asked, remaining calm. To look you in the eye, she spat. You took everything from me. My home. My business. My son's respect. You've even turned my daughter-in-law against me. I didn't take anything you didn't first try to steal, I replied, wiping the soil from my hands with a towel. You orchestrated the theft of my daughter. The financial ruin was just the house of cards you built for yourself collapsing. She was better off with me. Eleanor's composure cracked, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. I could give her a life of elegance and opportunity. What could you offer? Scrimping and saving and pearls of wisdom from a life of failure. Is that what you think my life has been? A failure? I took a step toward her. I raised a brilliant, kind daughter alone. I loved her unconditionally. I worked honest jobs. I built a life on a foundation of love, not loans. You look down on my hard-working hands, Eleanor, but these hands have held my child, built a home, and now, they help build up other women. What have your perfectly manicured hands ever built that truly mattered? She flinched as if I'd struck her. You have no idea what it takes to maintain a position in society. Society? I gave a dry, humorless laugh. Your society has abandoned you, Eleanor. Where are your friends now? Where is the money? The status? It was all smoke and mirrors. The only thing real you ever had was your family, and you drove them away by trying to turn them into accessories. Her face crumpled. The anger drained away, leaving behind a raw, shocking vulnerability. She was the daughter I never had, she whispered, a single, perfect tear tracing a path through her foundation. I wanted her to be perfect. No one is perfect, Eleanor. And a mother's job isn't to create a perfect specimen. It's to love an imperfect person perfectly. I felt a surprising wave of pity for this hollowed-out woman. You didn't want a daughter. You wanted a reflection. She had no retort. She stood there, defeated and utterly alone. The confrontation I had once fantasized about brought no satisfaction, only a profound sadness. Get out, Eleanor, I said, my voice quiet but firm. This chapter is closed. For both of us. She left without another word, her shoulders slumped. I watched the elevator doors close and then walked back to my balcony. I picked up my trowel and returned to the soil, to the simple, tangible act of nurturing life. The past was finally, truly, behind me. The future, with all its potential for growth, was just beginning to bud.